One of the strongest nonverbal signs of attraction is when a woman initiates subtle physical contact. A brief touch on your arm, shoulder, hand, or chest is often her way of testing comfort, connection, and chemistry. The key is not the touch itself, but the frequency and ease with which she does it. Attraction often reveals itself through small moments of physical closeness before words ever do. When a woman is emotionally engaged, her hands often become part of the interaction. She may playfully touch your hand while making a point, leave her hand resting near yours, or show no desire to pull away when contact occurs. These gestures suggest trust, comfort, and a willingness to deepen the connection beyond ordinary conversation. People instinctively protect themselves when they feel uncertain, but when attraction grows, barriers disappear. If her palms are visible, her arms remain uncrossed, and her hands move openly toward you rather than away from you, she is communicating receptiveness. Open body language often reflects an open emotional state. Attraction creates excitement and tension. A woman may adjust her jewelry, play with her fingers, touch her neck, or fidget slightly when she feels emotionally invested. When these gestures occur alongside prolonged eye contact and genuine engagement, they can indicate that she is feeling the emotional intensity of the moment. One of the clearest signs of growing intimacy is when she prolongs physical connection. She may allow hand contact to linger, compare hand sizes, guide you somewhere by the hand, or show unusual comfort with physical proximity. These behaviors often signal that she sees you as more than just a friend. Sometimes the strongest signal is when she subtly focuses attention on the connection between the two of you. She may lightly touch your face, brush something imaginary from your clothing, hold your gaze while touching your hand, or move closer while maintaining physical contact. These actions often indicate that she is inviting a deeper romantic moment. However, attraction signals are never a substitute for consent. Before making any move, ensure her interest is clear, mutual, and welcomed. One of the most misunderstood aspects of attraction is that people often expect desire to announce itself in obvious ways. They look for grand declarations, dramatic confessions, or unmistakable invitations. But human beings rarely operate like that. Especially when genuine attraction is involved, communication becomes subtle. It moves beneath words and reveals itself through behavior. And one of the clearest places to observe that behavior is in the way a woman uses physical touch. Now, this is important to understand. Touch is not just a physical act. Psychologically speaking, touch is a bridge. It is one of the primary ways human beings reduce emotional distance. When someone feels connected to you, comfortable around you, and curious about you, they often begin closing the gap physically before they ever admit their feelings verbally. Think about it. We don't casually touch people we feel indifferent toward. In fact, most adults are quite selective about who enters their personal space. We establish invisible boundaries around ourselves, and those boundaries exist for a reason. They protect us emotionally and psychologically. So when a woman repeatedly finds reasons to touch you, even in small ways, something significant may be happening beneath the surface. Maybe she lightly touches your arm while laughing at a joke. Maybe she places a hand on your shoulder when making a point. Maybe she brushes against you when there was plenty of room not to. Each individual moment may seem insignificant, but attraction is rarely revealed through a single action. It reveals itself through patterns, and that's where many men make a mistake. They become obsessed with decoding one specific gesture. They ask, "What does it mean if she touched my arm once?" That's the wrong question. The better question is, what pattern is emerging here? Because psychology is not about isolated events. It's about recurring behavior. When touch becomes frequent, effortless, and natural, it often indicates something deeper than friendliness. It suggests comfort. And comfort is not a small thing. Attraction cannot develop without it. Now, there's another layer here that deserves attention. Often, These touches are not conscious decisions. They emerge spontaneously. The woman herself may not even fully realize she's doing it. Her emotional system has already reached a conclusion that her rational mind is still catching up to. She feels safe. She feels interested. She feels connected. And her body begins communicating those feelings before her words do. This is why confidence matters so much in these situations. Not arrogance, not aggression, confidence. Because when a woman offers these subtle signals, what she's often looking for is not perfection. She's looking for your ability to recognize and respond to reality. Many men fail here because fear blinds them. They notice the signs but convince themselves they're imagining things. They hesitate endlessly. They overanalyze every interaction until the moment passes. And what was once growing attraction slowly transforms into frustration or disappointment. Life presents opportunities, but opportunities have a lifespan. They don't wait forever. At the same time, wisdom requires balance. A touch is not a contract. Attraction signals are clues, not guarantees. Respect remains essential. The goal is not to assume interest where none exists. The goal is to become perceptive enough to recognize genuine mutual attraction when it appears. That's what maturity looks like, not recklessness, not passivity, awareness. Because relationships are built on a series of moments where two people gradually reveal themselves to each other. And often, those revelations begin long before anyone says a word about how they feel. So pay attention, watch the patterns. Notice the repeated touches, the effortless closeness, the comfort she creates around you. Those small gestures may be telling a larger story. The tragedy is not that opportunities are rare. The tragedy is that many people fail to recognize them when they're right in front of them. And here's the thought worth carrying with you. Asterisk, a meaningful connection rarely arrives with certainty. It arrives with signals. And courage is the ability to recognize them before they disappear. As you begin paying attention to these subtle patterns of touch, another important dynamic starts to reveal itself. Attraction is not merely about whether someone touches you, it is about whether they seek connection. And there is a profound difference between accidental contact and deliberate engagement. Human beings are constantly communicating through actions that seem insignificant on the scales. Yet beneath those actions lies a complex psychological reality. We are social creatures, and one of our deepest needs is the desire to feel connected to another person. When a woman is emotionally invested in an interaction, that desire often becomes visible through her hands. You may notice that during a conversation, she finds reasons to involve physical contact in the exchange. Perhaps she briefly touches your hand while emphasizing a point. Perhaps her fingers linger for a second longer than necessary when handing you something. Perhaps she playfully nudges you after a joke or places her hand near yours and leaves it there, rather than pulling away. Now, it's important not to interpret these moments in isolation. The significance lies not in the action itself, but in the willingness behind it. What matters is that she is choosing connection over distance, and distance is the default state between strangers. Think about that for a moment. Most people unconsciously maintain a careful separation from others. We protect our personal space, we monitor boundaries, we keep a certain emotional and physical distance until trust has been established. This is a normal and healthy part of human interaction. So when someone consistently reduces that distance, they are communicating something meaningful. Psychologically speaking, attraction often manifests as a desire for increased proximity, not merely physical proximity, but emotional proximity as well. The two are closely linked. People who feel connected emotionally tend to become more comfortable with physical closeness, and people who are comfortable with physical closeness often reveal emotional openness through their behavior. This is why hands are so important in social interaction. They are extensions of intention. They reveal where attention is directed and where comfort exists. If a woman's hands repeatedly move toward connection rather than away from it, you should pay attention. Notice that I am not suggesting certainty. Human behavior is too complicated for simplistic formulas. What I am suggesting is awareness. Many men struggle because they are looking for absolute guarantees before they allow themselves to act. They want certainty. They want a sign so obvious that rejection becomes impossible. But certainty is not available in most meaningful situations. In fact, one could argue that the willingness to act despite uncertainty is one of the defining characteristics of maturity. Every important decision in life involves some degree of risk. Relationships are no exception. The challenge is not learning how to eliminate uncertainty. The challenge is learning how to navigate it intelligently. When a woman repeatedly seeks connection through touch, through proximity, through comfortable engagement, she may be creating opportunities for the relationship to move forward. She may be asking a question without using words. The question is not necessarily, "Will you kiss me?" The deeper question is, "Do you recognize what's happening between us?" And that is where many opportunities are lost. Some men fail because they are careless and oblivious. Others fail because they are so afraid of making a mistake that they never respond at all. Both extremes lead to the same outcome. A moment that could have evolved into something meaningful simply fades away. Attraction requires participation. It requires presence. It requires the courage to observe reality honestly, rather than hiding behind endless analysis. And there is something fundamentally philosophical about that. Life itself unfolds through participation. You cannot build a meaningful future by standing outside of every opportunity, waiting for complete certainty. You have to engage with the world as it is, not as you wish it would be. When a woman seeks connection during conversation, she is often revealing trust. She is demonstrating comfort. She is inviting a deeper level of engagement. Whether that invitation develops into something romantic depends on many factors, but the signal itself should not be ignored. Because the strongest connections are rarely built through dramatic moments. They are built through countless small acts of mutual openness, and perhaps that is the lesson worth remembering. Connection begins the moment two people stop protecting themselves from possibility and start moving toward each other instead. As you begin to recognize these signs of connection and increasing comfort, there is another layer of human behavior that becomes impossible to ignore. It is not just what a woman does with her hands when she touches you. It is what her hands reveal about her overall emotional state when she is around you. One of the fascinating realities of human psychology is that the body often tells the truth before the mind does. People can choose their words carefully. They can conceal their thoughts. They can attempt to project an image. But the body is remarkably honest. It continuously broadcasts information about comfort, confidence, anxiety, interest, and trust. This is particularly true when it comes to open and inviting hand gestures. When a person feels threatened, uncertain, or emotionally closed off, their body naturally shifts into a defensive posture. Arms cross, hands disappear into pockets, movements become restrained. The body attempts to create protection. This isn't something people consciously decide to do. It is deeply rooted in our evolutionary history. For thousands of years, vulnerability carried risks. As a result, human beings developed instinctive ways of shielding themselves when they felt unsafe. But attraction tends to produce the opposite effect. When a woman feels comfortable in your presence, when she enjoys the interaction and wants it to continue, her body often becomes more open. Her hands remain visible. Her gestures become expressive. Her movements flow naturally, rather than appearing rigid or guarded. Now, this may seem like a small detail, but psychologically, it is incredibly significant. Visible hands have long been associated with trust. Across cultures and throughout history, showing one's hands has symbolized peaceful intentions. Hidden hands create uncertainty. Visible hands create reassurance. Even today, people instinctively feel more comfortable around those whose body language appears open and transparent. So when a woman consistently gestures openly around you, when her palms are visible, when her hands move freely as she speaks, she may be communicating something deeper than the content of her words. She may be communicating that she feels safe. And safety is often misunderstood in discussions about attraction. Many people assume attraction is primarily about excitement, but lasting attraction is built on a foundation of security. Excitement can spark interest, but trust allows intimacy to develop. Think about any meaningful relationship you've ever observed. At its core is not merely desire, it is comfort. It is the feeling that one can exist authentically in another person's presence without constant self-protection. That is a profound psychological achievement, because the truth is that most people spend a considerable portion of their lives defending themselves. They hide weaknesses, they conceal fears, they present carefully constructed versions of who they are. And while that may provide temporary protection, it also creates distance. Connection requires the willingness to lower those defenses. When a woman's gestures become open and inviting around you, when her hands naturally move toward you rather than away, she may be demonstrating that those defenses are beginning to soften. And this is where awareness becomes crucial. Many men focus exclusively on verbal communication. They listen to words while ignoring the broader reality unfolding in front of them. But communication is never confined to language alone. In fact, some of the most important information people exchange occurs beneath conscious awareness. The body is constantly participating in the conversation. The challenge is learning to observe without becoming obsessive. You are not looking for secret codes. You are not searching for a mechanical formula that guarantees success. Human beings are far too complex for that. Instead, you are learning to recognize patterns of openness. You are learning to distinguish between someone who is merely being polite and someone who is genuinely engaged. And that distinction matters, because opportunities for meaningful connection often emerge quietly. They rarely announce themselves with certainty. They reveal themselves through subtle shifts in comfort, trust, and receptivity. A woman who feels closed off creates distance. A woman who feels connected begins reducing it. Her hands may reveal that before anything else does. And perhaps this points to a larger truth about relationships themselves. Genuine connection is not built through manipulation, performance, or strategy. It is built through creating an environment where another person feels safe enough to become open. That is what people are truly searching for beneath all the complexity of attraction. Not someone impressive, someone trustworthy. And that leaves us with an important question to consider. Are you paying attention only to what people say, or are you paying attention to the openness they are brave enough to reveal? As you become more attentive to openness, comfort, and the subtle ways attraction reveals itself through touch and body language, you begin to notice something that at first seems contradictory. Sometimes, the strongest signs of interest do not appear as confidence. They appear as nervousness. Now, this is where many people become confused. We often assume that if someone likes us, they will become more relaxed around us. And in some ways, that's true. Comfort does increase. Trust does grow. But attraction introduces another psychological force into the equation: emotional significance. The more someone matters to us, the more emotionally charged the interaction becomes. Think about the moments in your own life that carried genuine importance. A job interview you desperately wanted, a speech delivered in front of people you respected, a conversation with someone whose opinion mattered deeply. In each case, nervousness often appeared not because you were incapable, but because the outcome carried weight. Human beings become anxious around what they value, and attraction operates according to the same principle. When a woman feels emotionally invested in an interaction, she may experience a subtle internal tension. Part of her feels drawn toward the connection. Another part becomes increasingly aware of what is at stake. She wants the interaction to go well. She hopes she is being understood. She wonders what you are thinking. She becomes more conscious of herself. and that heightened self-awareness often reveals itself through the hands. You may notice her adjusting a bracelet repeatedly. Perhaps she plays with a ring on her finger. Maybe she lightly touches her neck, smooths her clothing, or intertwines her fingers while speaking. These gestures are frequently dismissed as meaningless habits, but within the broader context of attraction, they can tell a much deeper story. What you're witnessing is not necessarily discomfort with you. More often, it is emotional activation. There is a crucial difference between being uncomfortable around someone and being affected by them. Many men fail to recognize this distinction. They see nervous behavior and assume something is wrong. They interpret every moment of uncertainty as rejection. But psychology teaches us that emotional intensity often produces contradictory signals. A person can feel both comfortable and nervous simultaneously. Comfortable because they enjoy your presence. Nervous because that presence matters to them. In fact, some of the most meaningful relationships begin with precisely this combination. The individual feels safe enough to remain engaged, yet emotionally invested enough to feel vulnerable. And vulnerability is a fascinating concept. Modern culture often speaks about vulnerability as though it were simply a matter of self-disclosure. But genuine vulnerability is much deeper than that. It is the willingness to risk emotional exposure. Every time a person develops feelings for someone, they face a dilemma. To pursue the connection is to accept uncertainty. To care about another person is to create the possibility of disappointment. There is no way around this. Love, attraction, intimacy, these experiences are meaningful precisely because they involve risk. And the human nervous system knows it. That is why nervous gestures often emerge during moments of growing attraction. The body is responding to significance. It recognizes that something important may be unfolding. But context matters enormously here. A nervous gesture by itself means very little. Human beings fidget for countless reasons. The mistake is isolating one behavior and treating it as definitive proof of anything. What matters is the combination. If she maintains strong eye contact while displaying these nervous behaviors, if she remains fully engaged in the conversation, if she continues seeking proximity and connection, then those small hand movements may reveal emotional investment rather than discomfort. The pattern tells the story, and understanding patterns requires patience. One of the greatest weaknesses in modern dating is the obsession with certainty and instant answers. People want formulas. They want guarantees. They want a checklist that eliminates ambiguity. But meaningful human relationships do not operate that way. Real connection requires observation, presence, and the ability to tolerate uncertainty. It requires paying attention not only to confidence, but also to vulnerability. Because sometimes the most honest signal a person gives is not how perfectly composed they appear. It is the fact that they are struggling to remain composed at all. That nervous energy may be revealing something words have not yet expressed. And perhaps that points toward a larger truth about attraction itself. What makes a moment meaningful is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward despite it. So when you notice those subtle signs of nervousness, paired with genuine engagement, do not immediately interpret them as barriers. Sometimes they are evidence that the moment matters, and that is worth remembering. Asterisk. The strongest connections are not built when two people feel nothing at stake. They are built when both recognize the risk and choose courage anyway. As we move deeper into this discussion, a pattern begins to emerge. Attraction is rarely communicated through a single dramatic gesture. More often, it unfolds through a gradual reduction of distance. A woman becomes more comfortable, more open, more engaged, and eventually, if genuine interest is present, she may begin creating opportunities for physical connection that last longer than necessity requires. This is an important distinction. Earlier we discussed brief touches and casual moments of contact, but there is a significant psychological difference between initiating contact and prolonging it. The first signals interest, the second often signals investment. Human beings do not merely seek connection, they seek sustained connection. We want moments to continue when they are meaningful. We linger in conversations we enjoy. We stay longer in places that make us feel alive. We resist ending experiences that bring us joy. The same principle applies to attraction. When a woman creates opportunities to hold your hand, leaves her hand resting against yours, or allows physical contact to continue naturally, rather than immediately withdrawing, she may be communicating something important. She may be demonstrating that your presence has become psychologically rewarding. And that matters because attraction is not simply about desire, it is about preference. Out of all the people she could be interacting with, she is choosing to maintain a connection with you. Now, consider how unusual that really is. In everyday life, most physical contact is functional. We shake hands, we pass objects, we navigate crowded spaces. The contact serves a purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, the interaction ends. But attraction changes the equation. Suddenly, physical contact is no longer purely functional. It becomes relational. The contact itself acquires meaning because it symbolizes something larger than the action. A simple touch of the hand may appear insignificant from the outside, yet psychologically, it can represent trust, comfort, curiosity, and emotional closeness all at once. This is why moments involving hands often carry such significance. Hands occupy a unique place in human interaction. They are neither as distant as words, nor as intimate as a kiss. They exist in the space between. They serve as bridges between strangers and lovers, between uncertainty and connection. Think about how often hand contact appears in meaningful relationships. People hold hands while walking, while talking, while waiting, while sharing experiences. The gesture itself is simple, but its symbolism is profound. It says, in effect, I am comfortable being connected to you, and comfort, once again, is the foundation upon which attraction grows. Now, many men make the mistake of overlooking these moments because they are waiting for something more obvious. They are searching for certainty in the form of dramatic declarations. They imagine that attraction must always announce itself loudly, but reality is often much quieter. The truth is that meaningful moments are frequently subtle. A woman may compare hand sizes with yours. She may guide you somewhere by lightly taking your hand. She may leave her hand resting near yours and make no effort to create distance. She may find excuses to maintain physical proximity long after practical necessity has disappeared. None of these actions alone guarantees romantic interest, but together they form a pattern, and patterns reveal intent more accurately than isolated events ever could. What is fascinating from a psychological perspective is that prolonged contact often reflects a deeper shift taking place beneath conscious awareness. The individual is no longer evaluating whether connection is possible. They are beginning to experience connection as desirable. That is a profound transition, because attraction is not merely the recognition that someone is appealing. Attraction becomes meaningful when a person starts imagining greater closeness, when they stop asking, who is this person, and begin wondering, what could this become? And that question changes behavior. The body begins moving toward connection rather than merely tolerating it. The distance that once felt necessary begins to feel unnecessary. The barriers gradually dissolve. This is why awareness matters so much. Not because you should analyze every movement obsessively, but because opportunities for genuine connection often appear in these small moments. They appear when another person is quietly showing you that your presence matters. The challenge is having the courage to recognize those moments when they arrive, not with arrogance, not with entitlement, but with confidence grounded in observation. Because relationships do not move forward through mind reading. They move forward when someone notices the invitation hidden within the interaction and responds honestly. And perhaps that is the larger lesson here. Human beings spend much of their lives searching for certainty, when what they truly need is attentiveness. The signs are often there. The opportunity is often there. The question is whether you are present enough to see it. And that leaves us with a thought worth carrying forward. A connection grows stronger, not when two people avoid closeness, but when they stop finding reasons to let go. As we arrive at the final stage of this discussion, it becomes clear that all the signs we have explored, touch, proximity, openness, nervousness, and sustained connection, are moving toward a single destination. Attraction is not a collection of isolated behaviors. It is a process, a gradual unfolding in which two people slowly reveal their willingness to become more significant in each other's lives. And at a certain point, if that process is developing naturally, something interesting begins to happen. A woman may start drawing attention not merely to herself, but to the connection between the two of you. This is a subtle distinction, but it is one of the most important distinctions you can understand. In the early stages of attraction, much of the communication revolves around testing comfort. Is this person trustworthy? Is there chemistry? Is there mutual interest? But as attraction deepens, the focus often shifts. The interaction itself becomes the center of attention. You may notice moments where she lightly touches your face. Perhaps she brushes something imaginary from your shirt. Maybe she adjusts your collar, fixes your jacket, or finds a reason to enter your personal space while maintaining eye contact. On the surface, these actions seem ordinary, but psychologically they are not. What makes these gestures significant is not the physical act itself. It is the message beneath it. The message is, I am paying attention to you. And that is a remarkably powerful thing. Human beings have a deep desire to be seen, not merely looked at, but genuinely noticed. We want to feel that another person is aware of our presence in a meaningful way. We want to know that we matter. When a woman begins directing her attention towards small details about you, she may be demonstrating exactly that. Now, attention is one of the most valuable resources any person possesses. Time can be measured. Money can be earned and lost. But attention is different. Wherever attention goes, emotional energy follows. People invest attention in what they value. This is why attraction often reveals itself through seemingly insignificant actions. The woman who notices a small detail on your clothing, who remembers a minor fact from a previous conversation, who finds reasons to maintain eye contact while standing close to you, is demonstrating something that words alone cannot fully express. She is investing attention, and investment is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Think about any deep friendship, any successful partnership, any lasting romance. None of them survive on attraction alone. They survive because two people repeatedly choose to invest their awareness in one another. Attraction begins the process. Attention sustains it. What is fascinating is that these moments often occur right before a relationship reaches a turning point. There is a sense of anticipation in the air. The interaction feels different. The conversation slows down. The eye contact lasts longer. Physical distance decreases, and both people become aware, consciously or unconsciously, that something important may be happening. Now, this is where fear frequently enters the picture. Many men recognize these moments but hesitate. They second-guess themselves. They convince themselves they need more evidence, more certainty, more guarantees. But life rarely provides guarantees. In fact, some of the most meaningful opportunities in life appear only briefly. They exist within moments that require action before certainty arrives. This does not mean acting recklessly. It does not mean ignoring boundaries or disregarding consent. Quite the opposite. Real confidence is not aggressive. Real confidence is attentive. It pays attention to reality. It observes carefully. It respects the other person. And when mutual interest becomes clear, it is willing to move forward honestly rather than hiding behind endless hesitation. Because hesitation has consequences. People often think the greatest risk is rejection, but in many cases, The greater risk is allowing fear to prevent action altogether. A connection can disappear not because attraction was absent, but because courage was. And there is something deeply philosophical about that reality. Every meaningful relationship requires a leap into uncertainty. Every act of vulnerability involves risk. Every genuine connection demands that two people step beyond the safety of complete control. There is no alternative. The reward exists on the other side of uncertainty. That is true in relationships, and it is true in life. So when a woman begins drawing attention to the connection itself, when her actions consistently communicate comfort, trust, and emotional investment, the question is no longer whether attraction might exist. The question becomes whether you have the awareness to recognize it and the courage to respond appropriately. Because opportunities rarely disappear all at once. They fade slowly through neglect, hesitation, and inaction. And perhaps that is the lesson that ties everything together. The greatest moments in life are rarely lost because we acted with courage. They are lost because we waited for certainty that was never going to come.